Am I Evil by Jack Mangan. Based on Am I Evil by Brian Tatler and Sean Harris, originally released on the album Lightning to the Nations by Diamond Head, 1980. Chapter 5. It was a cold May mid-afternoon. We met for a kiss on the shore of Lake Silence. Neither of us felt secure in the smithy during daylight hours, even if Cliff was away at an elders' meeting. We stole into the boughs of a nearby tree for another kiss. I felt her tears wet on my face. Why are you crying, my love? Rhea slid her arms tighter around my waist, laid her head on my shoulder. Tears for nightmares of the past, none for today. She broke away, took my hand, and led us back to the water's edge. The ground along the banks was grass-covered, stubbled with rocks. We stopped before a narrow inlet. You should hear this news from me, not from rumor, she said, turning to face me. I've taken over your mother's old room at the Spirit's Dance. I'm not entertaining men, just studying her library. I can't bear to live in my parents' home anymore, not after... A protective anger burned through me, but was quickly doused by the anguish in her face. Rhea, I wouldn't presume to tell you. Just promise you won't ever come into town to see me. The tavern is a rough place, and will only be trouble for you. I'll come to the smithy every third night for us to be together. I swear. Weeks followed months into humid summer, the hottest in memory. Cliff continued to deride my fighting ability as hopeless, even as my confidence grew. Sometimes in the solitudes of night, I recalled my blunted purpose, my stalled vengeance. My waking hours were overrun with responsibilities and training, with occasional secret moments of bliss with Rhea. There was no luxury of idle time, no room for contemplation, for brooding, for planning, for stoking the coals of my anger. No time to ponder the good or evil of my mission. Another afternoon alone at the forge, Cliff away on an errand. Not enough time for a break to meet Rhea. Just a pile of metal jobs that needed attention. The stench of sweat and metal on me wouldn't have been pleasant for her anyway. A knock on the smithy door awoke my nerves. The caller was not a good elder. He stood alone, resplendent in loose-fitting chain armor, finer than any I'd ever seen before. Even on Cliff's anvil. Every tailored article on his person, cloak, glove, sash, and cap in matching indigo, were of superior, more delicate cloth than anything in my lakeside village. Even Henrik's wardrobe. He grinned at me with shimmering, relaxed confidence, his forearm resting casually on his jewel-encrusted sword pommel. Hello. You must be Vander. Is Cliff around? His accent, like his appearance, was a crisp and refined layer with a glimpse of bore underneath. My suspicion was elevated. I regretted taking no weapon to the door with me, though I sensed it wouldn't have done me much good. He's gone into town on elder business. How do you know me, sir? Because the prince knows everything that goes on in his father's kingdom. The name's Tatler, and I am the prince's servant in the same way that Cliff once was. The blade sang its steel cry as he unsheathed it. I took a step back, the muscles in my stomach tightening. Inwardly, I cycled everything Cliff had instilled in me about fight readiness. The dual state, calm and alert. I couldn't fail to notice the quality of the steel, even with minor nicks and scratches. I'd never seen its equal. Tatler's expression remained as friendly and unthreatening as before. With swift dexterity, he spun the sword to hand it to me, pommel first. Most beautiful sword you've ever seen, eh? She's called the Diamond Head, he said. Supposedly enchanted, it's said that if its master is ever bound or imprisoned, it will find a way to set him free. I shook away the dumb immobility, took the proffered sword in my hand. His smile deepened. He touched 2 fingers to his cap. Regrettably, I've no time to hang about. Tell your boss that the prince doesn't want any of his own royal clankers working on this. He wants it to be Cliff. Sharpen her up a bit, reset the skull diamond, firm up the guard, all that. While my brain tried to catch up, Tatler was already back at the smithy doorway. Good Lord, it's nearly as hot out here as it is in there. Feels like I've jumped in the fire. See you around, Vander. Say, did you know your name translates to evil in the Old Norse? I wonder if your mum knew. Wait, I called, just as he stepped out of sight. I rushed to the door, sword still in hand, to see that he'd paused just outside. He watched me, his eyebrows raised. What did you mean you used to work with Cliff, in service of the prince? Cliff was always His Majesty's favorite, the best slayer he'd ever employed. Tatler looked directly at me. Gave it all up for the unrequited love of Good's resident witch, your mother. That evening the rain bludgeoned the roof like a drum. Cliff held the diamond-head sword appraisingly by the lantern. Admiration lit the reflection in his eyes. I worked the bellows, drenched in the heat. The rain outside felt hot enough to boil, trying to match the furnace of the forge. You'll need to guard Diamond Head with your life while it's in our care, Cliff said, nearly a shout over the march of the rain. I couldn't help but wonder if Tatler had found shelter somewhere for himself and his fancy clothes. I'm sorry I missed Tatler. Good man, and his skills with an axe are unparalleled. He said you retired to Good for my mother. Cliff tensed a moment, then rested the sword on a bench top. He sat with a heavy sigh, not looking at me or at anything. I spent 2 decades in service of the prince, eliminating problems, standing guardian and watch, manning the fires of his royal forge. By appearance, the prince is your brother David's age, but in fact he's lived beyond a century. A witch named Tituba bonded herself to the royal family in the capital generations ago, waiting for him to be born. She has enchantments which keep herself, the king, and his son alive in perpetuity. The prince has no ambitions for his father's throne. He just wants to continue living his life of wine, swordplay, and sport. The only true threat to his immortality is witchcraft. So his assassin's main job is to find and kill all spellcasters in the kingdom. I was sent to Good, on a mission to eliminate the town's sorceress, your mother. 2 months after moving to Good, I went back before my liege to inform him that I could not carry out his order. I'd fallen in love with Lily, and, witch or no, I could not bring myself to slay her. I sat on a wooden stool, waiting for him to continue. Even the rain seemed to be listening. The prince may deal in evil, but he's also capable of compassion. He allowed me to leave his service, on the condition that I keep Lilith Ingood under control, and that I do occasional jobs for him. Who else here knew that my mother was a witch? All of the elders. By chance, my own sister Gerda lived here with her husband Adam and their daughter, Rhea. So I quickly rose to their ranks, learned many of Good's darkest secrets. The elders often called upon Lilith to perform spells and services for them. Her execution was not truly about black magic, but was due to some jealousy that arose between Henrik and Adam. Cliff's revelation shook me, spurred my dull revenge. But one thought above all dominated my mind. If their politics had doomed my mother, then the same fate would inevitably befall Rhea. I had to see her. Madly in anger, I lost my head. Again. Cliff was clouded with reverie, and so he reacted too slowly. The first strike with the fire shovel was swift, felled him from his chair. He cried out. The second blow knocked him into a daze on the puncheon floor. I saw my opportunity, but a fleeting mercy stayed my killing hand. My sole desire was to rush into town, liberate Rhea, and flee forever from Good. Once I knew she was safe, I'd chart a new map for my revenge. I opened the flue and stomped the bellows, choking the room with gray smoke. The diamond-head sword felt heavy in its scabbard. Its belt weighed down from my waist. Wait! I heard through the smoke. I could see Cliff raising a hand from the floor, beckoning to me. Vander, stop! There's much you don't know. Rhea's put a plan in motion to bring justice to the elders, to spare you from committing any evil. Stop now, before you ruin everything. Give us more time. Ask yourself, I stopped at the open smithy door, turned my head. Am I evil? Yes, I am. Chapter 6. The storm tapered the further I rode from Cliffs, was reduced to a few lazy clouds by the time I'd reached town. The Spirit's Dance was one of the only two-story buildings in all of Good. I know the second floor had held the ladies' quarters, including my mother's, which was now Rhea's. Cliff wouldn't be far behind. I had to act quickly. The interior is one large room with a bar and a half-dozen tables. It was surprisingly crowded on this night, especially for the weather. One whore lingered against the far wall near the bottom of the stairwell. Two others mingled with the men at their tables. Anderson, the barkeep, stared for a long moment when I entered, then shot a wary gaze at the two drunks leaning against his counter. My brothers. Well, well, if it isn't our little Vander come out of hiding. I'd seen that look on David's face countless times during my childhood. It always meant trouble. And here I thought he'd dived into the lake to be with Mum, said Alvey. Sighing inwardly, priming my resolve, I stepped to the far end of the bar, ignoring them. Evening, Anderson. I'm looking for Rhea. Is she here? His hands were busy loading tankards onto a tray. Yeah, she's... Are you looking for your bitch, are you? David slurred. Sweet and timely whore, take me home. I seen Rhea, yeah, Alvey said. She's upstairs right now, taking it from the bishop. Earlier 'twas Adam visiting her, said David. Her own da. That ain't right, Van. Gotta hurt your pride, eh? Alvey slammed his empty stein on the bar. Yeah, so you'll have to wait your turn. I'm up next. But you can have her when she's done sucking my love. The two of them were taken with fits of laughter. Anderson laughed along, concern still lining his face. Their smiles were full of taunting cruelty, the stock and trade of older brothers everywhere. Pride? I said aloud. Had she lied to me? A crimson veil replaced my vision, my ability to think. They both stepped away from the bar as I approached. I'll strip your pride. I heard the shing of the drawn sword before I realized the diamond head was in my hands. Its long blade sunk deep into David's chest. All conversation sucked out of the room in an instant, following a few gasps. A few shaky breaths from somewhere. The silence before the scream. A raw-throated, agonized growl sounded from down at my feet. A shapeless red pooled on the dirt floor, and an arm severed cleanly just above the elbow. My brother Alvey was on his knees next to it, clutching his right stump. His face was paling, unfocused expression twisted with pain and intoxicated anger. Comprehension began to seep in. In my rage blackout, I'd swung the blade swiftly. Neither of my ale-sotted brothers had had time to react or defend themselves. Now one lay dismembered, the other impaled. David's wide, dead eyes rolled. He slid backwards off my blade, crumpling to the floor. A cry of anguish broke from Alvey at the sight of this. The silence collapsed. There was a sudden roar of many voices, a press of many bodies against me. At least 4 arms wrapped around mine, incapacitating my weapon. The man nearest me tried to throw a fist, but slipped and fell hard in Alvey's blood. Many other punches landed, though, battering my jaw, boxing my ears. Anderson's flushed face appeared in the mob, his teeth gritted together. Not in the Spirit's Dance, Vander. Have you gone mad? Get him! Someone else shouted. Hold his arm, Lamba! I thrashed about in counterattack, jabbing, striking, kicking, gnashing, even using my teeth and hard head as weapons. But the diamond head was soon pried from my grasp. I could hear its metallic clatter on the floor. Pressed, pinned beneath their weight, the very act of drawing breath became a struggle. Consciousness began to ebb. You're listening to the audiobook of Am I Evil, based on the Am I Evil novella, based on the Am I Evil graphic novel, based on the classic heavy metal song written and made famous by Diamond Head and famously covered by Metallica, and later covered live by the thrash big four of Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth. Narration by me, Jack Mangan. the author of the graphic novel and the novella. All the legal stuff here, you can't sell recordings or transcripts of this, blah, blah, blah. We're running an Indiegogo campaign in June 2023 to raise funds to produce high-quality print versions of the Am I Evil graphic novel, with cover art by James F. Beveridge and all interior comic panel art and lettering by Kyle Burles, aka Biohazard. Please swing over to Indiegogo and support our campaign to receive your own print and/or PDF edition of the Am I Evil comic. And the ebook of this novella will also be available separately. Or for purchase information or just general information about Am I Evil, check us out at amievil-graphicnovel.com. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Indiegogo supporters.